This is 5 Live Formula One with Jenny Gow.
Hello and welcome to Bahrain. Think back, Brazil, 2006. That was the last time that Lewis Hamilton wasn't on the grid for a Formula One race. What were you doing in 2006? It was a long time ago. I can't even remember. So that gives you some context, because today, George Russell, a 22-year-old man from Kings Lynn, slips into the seat of the most powerful, the most successful car in Formula One. This should be a thriller. Delighted to say I'm joined as ever by Andrew Benson, the BBC's chief F1 writer, Jolyon Palmer, former F1 driver, and Jack Nichols, our lead commentator. And Jack, a lot of people excited about this race.
I'm just trying to remember the 2006. Was that the one where Kimi said he was busy at the Michael Schumacher presentation on the grid? Yeah. And then Schumacher, he had a puncture or something, didn't he? And kind of came back through the field in a good final drive. Yeah. Looking forward to this one. Russell starting in second place on the grid. Will we see a new winner in Formula One? Will we see an interesting fight for the race lead? They were so close in qualifying. The Red Bulls looked strong in race pace. So I think we're in for an interesting evening, I suppose, because that's the time of day.
Jolyon, we raced here. This time last weekend, the world was rosy. Romain Grosjean was getting into a car, into his Haas, thinking, he could maybe pick up a point if he was lucky, and then it all went pear-shaped for him, didn't it? So, are we expecting chaos at the start of this race as well?
I mean, the track layout is different, but the bit that Grosjean crashed on is the same. I don't think we are, to be honest. There's always the chance of an incident down at turns 1, 2 and 3, all sort of one combination of corners, a right and then a left at 2, which slingshots you through turn 3. And it's the exit of 3 that Grosjean crashed last weekend. I imagine the drivers are going to be not swerving across the width of the track, and they're going to be a little bit more mindful of each other coming, especially through that part, because it probably will still be in their minds, doing another race start in the same place as that horrendous crash last week. So hopefully we get a cleaner start.
Now, you talk about starts. Right now, Valtteri Bottas strapped into his Mercedes in the number 77 car, looking down to turn 1. Next to him, George Russell, for the first time in his Formula One career, starting on the front row. Jolyon, how difficult is it for him? What's he going to have to do to make sure he gets a good start off the line?
Drop the clutch to the right point and then apply the right level of throttle. They're the two variables, really. He's on the dirty side of the grid, so his job is inherently going to be more difficult than that of Bottas ahead and Verstappen behind. He's also on the medium tyres, unlike Verstappen, who starts third, and everyone else behind, for that matter. So he's got actually a difficult job at the start. He's not had a history of good starts. He's had a very good history of qualifying, but often it's the start that's let him down in the Williams. So there is going to be pressure. He's got no one ahead of him. It's a great position to be, just having a clear run down to turn 1, with Bottas obviously ahead to the left-hand side. But he's just got to focus on the procedures and hope to get a bit of traction on the dirty side of the grid.
87 laps around the Sakhir circuit. 74% of the time is spent on full throttle. It will be Bottas from Russell on the front row of the grid. Then Verstappen, Leclerc, Perez, Kvyat, Ricciardo, Sainz, Gasly, Stroll, Ocon, Albon and Vettel and Giovinazzi making up. Well, I was going to do a top 10 and then I realised that my cut-off line was slightly lower, so apologies, Jack. You're going to have to do it all 14. Again in a minute. Yeah.
Interesting decision.
Well, then it'll be Magnussen, Latifi, Aitken, Raikkonen, Norris taking a penalty because he's got power unit changes, and Fittipaldi also taking penalties, so I'll just do the full grid instead. Andrew Benson, let's come to you for some sanity. When it comes to this race, a lot of people wondering if Bottas and Russell are going to be able to fight. Will they be allowed to? What's Toto Wolff been saying?
He said it's, the gloves off, they're allowed to race, absolutely. I think that's the position at Mercedes all the time, except in really exceptional circumstances. So it would have been surprising to hear him say anything else. I think Russell's problem is going to be that he's on the wrong side of the grid. When I say wrong, I mean dirty, and it's been very sandy and windy. Lots of wind blowing sand onto the track today, and the track's notorious for having a sort of slippery inside of the grid anyway. So we saw last weekend Valtteri Bottas made a bad start from second place on the grid. That's the concern for Russell, I think, immediately heading into the race.
Andrew, is this a significant moment in British motorsport? Do you think Lewis Hamilton not being there for the first time in 265 consecutive races, and then George Russell, another Brit, slotting into his seat?
Massively. I mean, if people didn't realise before that George Russell was a huge star of the future of British motorsport, then they realise it now. He's done his chances of getting into that Mercedes car for 2022 no harm whatsoever. I would imagine Valtteri Bottas is... Well, he might not be admitting it to himself right now, but he's got to be worried after the performance George Russell's done over the last 2 days in Bahrain. We might get Russell in the car again next weekend if Lewis Hamilton doesn't recover from coronavirus, but it's pretty clear right now that George Russell's got a very long and probably very successful Formula 1 career ahead of him.
Jack, we raced, obviously we said that already, in Bahrain last weekend. This weekend it's the outer circuit. Can you just describe to us some of the things we'll be listening out for in your commentary, some of the points of interest?
Well, only 10 corners, the run down to turn 1, then we got that 2 and 3 sequence that Jolien was talking about earlier, then up to turn 4, which is similar, except the exit, you don't stay to the right, you go to the left, down through a right-hander of turn 6, which is sort of flat out, and then into a chicane at 7 and 8, out onto the back straight through turn 10. Simple as that. It's going to be interesting to see what sort of race it provides, because it provided a decent race in the Formula 2 events, but then Formula 2 racing is better than Formula 1 racing, so it's difficult to necessarily get a gauge off of that how this is going to be. It could be really entertaining, it could be a load of cars in a DRS train. It all depends what happens at the start, and we'll see how it unfolds.
Yeah, some emotional scenes earlier today actually, with Mick Schumacher being crowned the Formula 2 champion, Ross Brawn going up to him, giving him a big cuddle as well. Of course, he was the boss of his dad's team in his Ferrari days when Michael Schumacher was racing. So I think a lot of people, even Jean Todt, saying how great it is that Mick Schumacher's won the championship. Goes through to Formula 1 to drive for Haas next year. And with mention of Haas, just briefly, Romain Grosjean will not take part in next weekend's Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. Doctors have said he's going to fly home and get further treatment. Fittipaldi back in next weekend then. Jolien, surprised?
Yeah, very surprised. Very surprised indeed, to be honest. But he's about to make his debut. Yeah.
Good times.
All in all, a surprising choice, given they've got 2 drivers stepping in instead of Grosjean next year, one of which has just won the Formula 2 title.
Yep. Funny times. The other person to listen out for, who you might be going, oh, who's this? Jack Aitken. He's sitting in for George Russell in the Williams, another Brit/Korean that we'll be cheering on. Just one final thought, Jolien, before we hand over to you two. Blue flags. We see them waved a lot. Why are they waved, and what's it going to be of note this weekend?
Blue flags for back markers to get out of the way of the race leaders. It's a very short lap. 53 seconds in qualifying, and in the race it'll still be less than a minute, which means that the leaders will be on the back of the likes of Pietro Fittipaldi very quickly in this Grand Prix. It'll probably be sort of 5 or 6 laps. It could even be as less than 10 before they start getting blue flags. That's a pain for the drivers being lapped, but it's also difficult for the leaders coming through, because they're going to lose time probably lapping drivers, especially if they catch them in the wrong place.
George Russell on his radio asking Bono, his race engineer this weekend, give me a reminder at the pit stops that we're the first pit box. Love it. Right, it's time. We're ready to go. So let's hand over for the Sakhir Grand Prix to our commentary team of Jolien Palmer and Jack Nicholls.
Thank you very much, Jenny. 87 laps of racing around this shortened Bahrain circuit, a week on from last week's race at the longer track that saw that horrific accident for Romain Grosjean, a flip for Lance Stroll. There will be some more nerves going into the first couple of corners this time around, but hopefully we'll get a clean getaway. And who can get a clean getaway off of the front of the grid? Valtteri Bottas versus George Russell. Those 2 Mercedes are the only 2 in the top 10 that will be starting on the medium compound of tyres, so they will be running a different strategy to the Verstappens, the Leclercs, the Perez's of this world that are starting immediately behind. Will it be a head-to-head between Bottas and Russell? Will Verstappen in the Red Bull with those softer tyres on the clean side of the grid be able to get a good start and try and split those Mercedes on the run down towards the first corner? A lot of questions will be answered in the next minute or so. The final mechanics now moving off the grid, ready for the formation lap to start. The 2 Mercedes locking out the front row. Verstappen and Leclerc on row 2. A brilliant job from Charles Leclerc yesterday in qualifying. For those of you syncing up, the formation lap is starting in 3, 2, 1 now, because it ticks over to 10 past 5 here on 5 Live Sports Extra. This, the Sakhir Grand Prix. So the cars making their way around what will be a very short formation lap, and Verstappen is actually ahead of Russell at the moment, but it won't start that way at the beginning. Bottas will be on pole position, Russell alongside him on the front row of the grid. Verstappen and Leclerc 3rd and 4th, Perez in 5th. Kvyat, Ricciardo, Sainz, Gasly, Stroll the top 10. Ocon the first, other than the Mercedes, of the medium runners in 11th place ahead of Albon, Vettel, Giovinazzi and Magnussen. Latifi, Aitken, Raikkonen, Norris and Fittipaldi both took penalties, so they're in 19th and 20th places. So dusty off the start, Jolien. Even on the practice starts, just pulling away from on the warm-up lap.
Yeah, sand all over the start line. Is going to be so tough to get any traction with the lack of grip there. This is going to really throw an element of randomness into the start. The wind's picked up a little bit and obviously blown a lot of dust and sand across the track. And that was just so evident as all the cars pulled away for the first time. Grip on that, particularly putting down 1,000 horsepower as the lights go out, is going to be so tricky.
So the cars now already back around to line up on the grid. Valtteri Bottas on the medium tyre. George Russell will start alongside him on the front row of the grid. Here's Pierre Gasly's radio.
I took another stone in the hand.
He's already taken another stone in the hand. He got hit on the fingers yesterday by a errant piece of gravel, and it's happened to him today already, starting in 9th place on the grid. Pierre Gasly, as Jenny, the cars pull out on the pull up to the pole position slot.
Yeah, talking about being battered and bruised, George Russell doesn't fit his seat properly, doesn't really fit the car properly either. 11 centimetres taller than Lewis Hamilton, and he says he's aching already.
Well, he's starting in 2nd place, right up behind his teammate Valtteri Bottas. The cars are in position now. The charge down to the hairpin right-hander of turn 1 is about to get underway. It's the penultimate race of the season. There's no Lewis Hamilton on the grid. He's in a hotel room somewhere, isolating because of testing positive for COVID-19. Hopefully, he'll be hoping he's back for Abu Dhabi in a week's time. Kevin Magnussen Pietro Fittipaldi in the Haas lines up at the back of the field. Here we go then, the Sakhir Grand Prix about to get underway. Bottas on pole, Russell alongside him. What can the Brit do off the start? Verstappen's in 3rd right behind him, and it's a decent start from Russell. He's got away pretty well. He might even get ahead of Bottas, you know. Verstappen's trying to get through the middle of them. Bottas covers the outside line, Russell on the inside. The two go wheel to wheel, and Russell's into the lead. George Russell in 1st position. Bottas has a big slide in 2nd place, and he might lose out here to Verstappen. Perez is trying to go around the outside as well, and they're 3 wide up towards turn 4. There's a spin further back for one of the Alfa Romeos. Bottas does hold on to 2nd place. There's a big lockup. Leclerc hits Perez. They slide off. Verstappen, I think, has been wiped out in that as well. So Russell leads. It's 2nd place for Bottas, and it is Verstappen in the wall, out of the Grand Prix. The safety car deployed. Russell leads the way.
Wow, chaos at the start. Brilliant getaway from George Russell, straight up the inside of Bottas, and then he was good on the brakes as well to keep the fin behind. Then it all fanned out behind. Verstappen under pressure from Perez, but then Leclerc steamed up the inside, locked up, hit Perez. Verstappen's tangled up in that as well. Verstappen and Leclerc both jumping out of their cars. They're in the wall at turn 4 and out of this race. I think Perez might have got going again. He has. And there was a spin further back for Kimi Raikkonen, actually in pretty much the same place as Grosjean crashed. All action, and the grip level was just so low. That's why the cars were struggling so much with lockups and ultimately contact.
Bottas had some big lockups in the early couple of, especially up at turn 4. We'll wait to see a replay of what happened to Verstappen and Leclerc. They're both out of the car. They're okay. But, well, I mean, that has opened the door, and Verstappen is furious, kicking the tyre barriers, because he had a shot at winning this Grand Prix, didn't he?
Absolutely. On the soft tyre, I thought, particularly with the low grip level, that would really benefit those on the soft. But actually, Russell's getaway was so good on the dirtier part of the track and on the mediums. He did everything right there. And Verstappen then had nowhere to go down towards turn 1. The Mercedes was side by side battling it out. Then Bottas had a huge snap coming through turn 2. That bunched Verstappen back. and then allowed Perez to slingshot around the outside and Leclerc on the inside.
So we're getting a replay of the start now. Norris just got a better start than Bottas. Russell had a better start than Bottas, got the inside at turn 1. Then, as you say, Bottas had a big twitch on the way through the left-hander of 2. Perez went to the outside then, and then they were 3 wide coming up into turn 4, and Leclerc has come from absolutely nowhere. He's fired it up the inside of Perez, he's hit Perez, and then Verstappen has not actually been hit by anyone, but he's ended up in the gravel around the outside. Kimi Räikkönen, meanwhile, we're just getting a replay of what happened to him. Oh, he lost it all by himself, just through the right-hand kink of 3, and as you say, almost went into the barriers where Grosjean went off a week ago. But Leclerc, was that just super ambitious into 4, or was that fair enough?
Yeah, no, he dive-bombed up the inside, was locked up and out of control. Too ambitious, given the low grip level, and he hit the right rear of Perez. Verstappen just tried to go wide and avoid this crash. He was actually really careful into turn 4. Then the 2 hit. Verstappen went wide, and he was just on the throttle trying to get going again and crashed all on his own. He didn't get hit by anyone. He was just trying to get around the outside of Leclerc and Perez, and got out wide through the gravel, couldn't turn anymore, and hit the wall. Leclerc's fault for contact with Perez. He was locked up and out of control, trying to brake too late at the start of the start in low grip conditions. Perez spun around and somehow managed to get going, has been through the pits. But Verstappen then, just trying to mind his own business, running wide on the slippery stuff, just found the wall.
So, Russell leads, Bottas second, and a great start for Carlos Sainz in the McLaren. He's up into 3rd position, Jenny.
Yeah, great start for him and his teammate. An even better start. And Lando Norris started from the back of the grid. He had a rubbish day in qualifying yesterday and then took an engine penalty. He managed to get up to 10th place, I think. I'm just looking at where he is now. Yeah, up to 10th place, up 9 spots into that. Incredible. Perez came in on the first lap and changed onto a medium set of the new mediums.
Verstappen and Leclerc have a little bit of a conversation after they've climbed out of their cars, and both a bit of a shrug and there we go.
Well, Verstappen had a good view of that because he was right alongside Perez with Bottas on his inside. Leclerc was behind the lot of them but braked so late, then Verstappen would have just seen that one coming. The bright red Ferrari on the inside just careering into the back of Perez, and from there Verstappen just tried to do his best to avoid it, but he was just constantly trying to get on the throttle not to lose too much time, and in the end there was no grip out there and he couldn't turn the car. If he had not been on the throttle, he might have had a chance, but he was so focused out wide, he was probably going to lose a handful of places anyway. But as it was, he was trying to get back on as quick as possible, keeping the speed up, had no grip, and ended up in the wall.
So, lap 4 of 87, the car of Max Verstappen just being hoisted away from the tyre barrier. The order is Russell, Bottas, then it's a free-for-all now for 3rd place. Best of the rest is the fight for the podium, with Sainz in 3rd, Ricciardo 4th, Kvyat 5th, Stroll 6th, Gasly 7th, Ocon 8th, 9th for Vettel, 10th for Norris. Magnussen, Albon, Latifi, Giovinazzi, Aitken, Fittipaldi, Raikkonen and Perez, the 18 drivers still in the Grand Prix, with Verstappen and Leclerc eliminated. Albon's managed to not gain any places, despite 3 cars in front of him going out. And the safety car is deployed, and now it'll be George Russell, Jolien, who has to do the restart as much as well, what he's never done before, leading a Grand Prix.
Yeah, well, he'd already never started from the front row in Formula 1, and he made a great job of that. Verstappen actually had the best getaway by a chunk, but with Russell getting a really good start as well, he went side by side with Bottas, and Verstappen had nowhere to go, which allowed Russell to keep the lead once he fended off the attack of Bottas by going deep enough on the brakes at turn 1. He was miles clear into turn 4, ahead of all the melee. And Bottas was wheel to wheel with Perez as well, and wasn't a huge distance away from being clouted. Had his own lock-up at turn 4. As you said, has had a couple of lock-ups and Larry moments already. Here's Verstappen.
Yeah, I couldn't do anything there.
So, Verstappen in the wall, Russell leading, Bottas second, Jenny Gao.
Yeah, just watching Alexander Albon start, actually. I know he hasn't made up any places, and you can see why, because he made a real hash of things just behind Kimi Räikkönen, and I don't know if that spooked him, but he almost lost the car totally. He went very wide, hit a bit of gravel as well, and was really lucky not to be out of this race, to be honest.
Yeah, well, he was ahead of Raikkonen coming. He was ahead of Raikkonen when Raikkonen spun, so not quite sure how he didn't manage to to gain places overall. Coming up through turn 4, Vettel got past him. Okay, I think he's got out of shape at 4, because that's where Vettel and Norris and presumably Magnussen managed to get past him as well.
He cut the corner at turn 3. He was trying to go around the outside of Ocon, I think, and went wide on turn 2. Cut the corner at 3, and I think he lost a lot of momentum even before the crash, Alex Albon. So 11th place on the medium tyres. Those that made good starts generally, Magnussen's up into 11th and Norris in 10th. They started on the soft tyres despite starting right down near the back. So the soft tyre definitely helping those guys. But
it's also a big hit for Racing Point's fight for 4th in the Constructors, for 3rd in the Constructors' Championship, and Perez is fight for 3rd in the Drivers, for 4th in the Drivers.
Yeah, safety car ending this lap. So here we go then. George Russell has so much pressure now, leading a Grand Prix. First race for Mercedes, and he's absolutely smashed this weekend. Pretty much doing everything right, bar 2.5 tenths in qualifying. But now he's got a safety car restart, and Bottas is going to be so determined to beat him in this Grand Prix.
2.5 hundredths in qualifying.
That's what I meant.
Yeah, lap 6 of 87. Safety car is going to be coming in a couple of moments' time, and Russell will take the restart. I mean, what this does mean with the elimination of Verstappen and Leclerc, more so Verstappen, is that it's very much a Mercedes fight for the win. And there he goes. Russell goes for it, floors it, coming down towards turn 10. Sainz is quite close to the back of Valtteri Bottas, onto the brakes into the final corner of 10. And racing gets back underway at the Sakhir Grand Prix. Russell leading, Bottas second, Sainz in third, Ricciardo fourth. Is Sainz going to fancy one here in the McLaren? He's right underneath the rear wing of Valtteri Bottas. They're coming down towards turn 1. Bottas has to cover the inside. Sainz goes to the outside in the McLaren, sweeps right around the outside of the Mercedes driver and gets up into second position. So Russell leads, Sainz is in second, but he's gone wide, and Bottas is back through. So Carlos Sainz did all the hard work and then got out of shape coming through too. Bottas back up into second place, Sainz to third, Ricciardo, Kvyat, Stroll, Gasly, Ocon, Vettel, Norris the top 10.
What a relief for Bottas then. He lost a bit of time there. Sainz did a lovely move around the outside.
He's taken the lead. It's lap 7 of 87. He got a better start than his teammate Valtteri Bottas. Went from second up into first place. Then we had a safety car because Max Verstappen and Charles Leclerc were out of the Grand Prix after colliding with Sergio Perez. They're all okay. Nothing like the drama of last week. But Russell comes across the line now to start lap 8 of 87. And he's 1 second ahead of his Mercedes teammate Valtteri Bottas. That turn 4 incident will be investigated after the race. Norris on the attack now, up the inside of Sebastian Vettel. That's 9th position for the McLaren driver, who has made such a good start, actually, that his soft tyre choice is probably a bit annoying for him, because he's up into 9th position now on the soft tyres, where everyone he's racing in the midfield would be on the mediums, Jenny.
Yeah, he's also got this new power unit, which was one of the reasons he was right at the back to start this race. And the guys at McLaren think that could just give him a little bit extra as well. So it'll be an interesting race for the McLarens and certainly fun to watch. Sainz currently 3rd, Norris 9th.
Tell you what, Sainz is closer to Bottas than Bottas is to Russell at the end of this lap.
Bottas is dropping. He's done a really poor middle sector. Russell was 7 tenths quicker. And again, Bottas this time actually does the fastest third sector of anyone. So he's managed to haul it back in. But Sainz is pressuring him. Of course, Norris benefited from having the soft tyres. That's why he's in the top 10 in the first place, probably. Had more grip off the line.
Vettel now passing Alex Albon for 10th position. So those two must have swapped places when Norris got past Vettel, and now Vettel is back ahead of Alex Albon. So Vettel in 10th, Albon in 11th, Magnussen is 12th, 13th is Latifi, 14th is Perez, 15th is Giovinazzi, Aitken is 16th, Raikkonen is 17th, and Pietro Fittipaldi, the Brazilian making his Formula One debut, is running in 18th position at the moment. Russell is on his way to setting the fastest lap of the Grand Prix. Sound you can hear is a replay of Lando Norris sending it up the inside of Sebastian Vettel down at the first corner. Perez has also picked off Aitken and subsequently Giovinazzi to put himself up into 14th spot. Raikkonen's still out there and didn't pit, so despite that big spin, you would imagine he's got a bit of flat spot action, but he's doing all right at the moment. Across the line comes Russell to go a couple of tenths quicker than Bottas. The gap goes out to 1.8 seconds, and it's 1.4 seconds from Bottas back to Sainz.
Everything good at the moment for for George Russell, managing this race perfectly. Further back, I can't believe Perez hasn't got any bigger damage from that whack from Leclerc. A bit like Portimao, where he got the hit from Verstappen. He pitted at the end of lap 1. And I tell you what, he's roared his way back into 12th place, just picking off Kevin Magnussen, and he's already made a pit stop. He's not out of this by any means. He's only 11 seconds off the lead. I mean, he's not out of it for sort of best of the rest contention.
And Jack Aitken is going wheel to wheel with Kimi Raikkonen. Nicholas Latifi in the Williams is going wheel to wheel with Antonio Giovinazzi. It's currently Latifi, Raikkonen going right round the outside of 6, gets up the inside into 7. Nicely done from the Finn. That was some fighty Raikkonen we haven't seen for many years.
Brilliant move. I don't think we were expected to see a move around the outside of 6 into 7 in this Grand Prix. There's such low grip out there. It's almost started off like a half wet race with how slippery it was. With every lap, the track will be cleaning up, but it's really not working out for Bottas. He's just matched Russell on the last lap, but those early laps, he really struggled for grip, and actually Sainz passed him, and it was only Sainz making a mistake at the next corner at turn 2 that's meant that Bottas is back into second.
Lap 11 of 87. Russell leading 1.6 seconds ahead of Bottas. Still the duel between Albon and Vettel is ongoing. Albon back up into 10th place ahead of the Ferrari, but goes in a bit deep into turn 4. That could give Vettel the advantage to get him coming into 7 and 8, but he's not close enough. Big lock up on the right front for Vettel. That's going to allow Perez to get through on the run down towards the final corner at turn 10, and Perez now moves up into 11th place, so he'll be in the points before too long, you would have thought. Vettel's coming back at him up the inside down into 10, but smartly sits behind, because if he overtook there, he wouldn't have the DRS coming down the start-finish straight. Equally, I think Perez is gone.
And I think Perez might have DRS on Alex Albon now as well. This is a remarkable first few laps from the safety car restart there for Perez, passing 7 cars all on track.
Lap 12 of 87. Jenny.
Yeah, just looking at strategy. So we're expecting the first pit stop window to open at around lap 21, so in 9 laps' time. That's for the people that started on the soft tyre. Mediums, we're expecting lap 26 for them to start coming in. This is going to be a 2-stop race by all of the engineers accounting.
Yeah, it wasn't a particularly long safety car period either, was it, at the start? Lap 12 of 87, Russell leading, Bottas second, and then Sainz in third, Ricciardo fourth, Kvyat fifth. Stroll, Gasly, Ocon, Norris, Albon, the rest of the top 10. Perez in 11th position, 12th for Vettel, 13th Magnussen, 14th Latifi, 15th Giovinazzi, Aitken, Raikkonen and Fittipaldi. The 18 runners still, and Aitken's back ahead of Kimi Raikkonen then, so he's having a good squabble with the 2007 world champion is Jack Aitken. He's only sort of 3 seconds or so behind his Williams teammate, so pretty decent performance this from Aitken in the early 13 laps of the Grand Prix. And Perez now is on the back of Alex Albon, onto the brakes into turn 1. Albon in 10th place at the moment in that Red Bull.
These two fighting for a podium this time last week, which Perez looked like he had sewn up until his engine let go with a few laps to go. That gave the podium to Albon. Now they're racing for 10th place after Albon's miserable weekend so far. He struggled to get going in this race, and Perez, of course, was hit on the first lap and is recovering quite well. Sainz is starting to drop back in third place, and he's got a big train behind him with Ricciardo, Kvyat, Stroll, Gasly and nearly Ocon as well, all on the back of Sainz, who a few laps ago was complaining of deployment issues, which has been a problem for McLaren through practice as well this weekend.
Lap 14 of 87. Alex Albon setting his personal best. Big lock up again from Bottas on the right front coming down into turn 1. As a result, he loses a little more time. He and Russell are pretty much doing identical. No, tell a lie. Russell was 3/10 quicker on that last lap, and I think he will have been quite a bit quicker in that first sector. No, Bottas managed to keep the speed, but still, Russell looking pretty comfortable.
And Bottas damaging the tyres as well with that right front lock-up. Once you lock it up once, you can maybe you might start to get a flat spot, in which case it's easier to lock up again and again and again. And the idea for Mercedes starting on the medium was that they could go a little bit further if they wanted. And with Verstappen out of the race, this is just a head-to-head between Mercedes. They're clearing away from Sainz, just half a second from Bottas to Sainz on the last lap, and Russell 7/10 quicker than Sainz. So it's just a head-to-head between Russell and Bottas for the Grand Prix win. Russell's in the best place, and being the lead driver, he should get the optimum strategy as well.
Lap 15 of 87, charging down towards turn 1 is the Ocon, Norris, Albon train. Sorry, it's the Ricciardo, Kvyat, Stroll train. Nothing changing there at the moment. Jenny.
Yeah, Guido van der Garde has been on social media. Very funny tweet, thought I'd share it. He said, already bored with George Russell's domination.
Yeah, he's a funny man, Guido van der Garde. Did my first ever 5 Live commentary with him, actually. 2014 Chinese Grand Prix. Wasn't great. I'm happy we got Palmer. Lap 15 of 87. And I think Alan McNish couldn't be bothered to come to that one. Here's Bottas's radio.
Valtteri, we are target +9.
So, what, they want to go 9 laps longer into the Grand Prix than they were planning on?
That's presumably to go to a 1-stop from a 2-stop initially, I'd have thought. For Mercedes, with that option starting on the mediums, they're maybe looking to just cut out a pit stop. The gap is still not huge, and if they had to pit right now, they'd be tumbling right pretty much to the back of the field, both Russell and Bottas. The field spread is not a lot, of course, with such a short lap. They want to just extend this stint as much as possible with absolutely no threat from behind. Sainz still in third, and Ricciardo making no inroads, despite looking like he's a little bit held up there.
Perez right behind Alex Albon as they come out towards turn 4, but he's not able to make any moves just yet on the Red Bull driver. He's doing a very good job today, Sergio Perez, and the longer the year goes on, the sadder I am that he's not staying in Formula One. I think I was a little... blasé is the wrong word, but a bit like, yeah, he's a solid midfield driver. You know, he's fine, but he's just a bit ahead of Stroll, and it's not going to be the world's greatest travesty. But you have to look at the Racing Point and think, you'd be better off having Perez than Vettel, wouldn't you?
He's flying right now. Every race, he's putting in decent qualifyings and generally getting it all right in the race. I don't attribute any of that first contact blame to Perez. He was up into third place, even attacking Bottas at the start. I think it was Leclerc out of shape that's put him down in this position. And even in this position, he's taken a pit stop and he's still all over the back of Albon. And the issue he's got now is Albon's got DRS with Norris ahead, and Norris starting to struggle, starting on those soft tyres with both Albon and Perez now on the medium. Norris is just backing Albon up slightly.
Lap 17 of 87. Russell across the line to set another fastest lap of the Grand Prix, a quarter of a second quicker than Bottas in second place, Jenny.
Yeah, I've spoken to Mercedes and they say Bottas is struggling with brake locking at the moment. Now, in my head, I'm just looking at Russell setting fastest laps and things like that. He's never done this sort of a race before, not in Formula One, and I just wonder, Lewis Hamilton is a master when it comes to tyre management. Let's hope Russell isn't thinking of the short game and is thinking all the way to the end of this race.
Well, that is where he was struggling on Friday. Bottas now does the fastest lap of the race, a 57.9, which is a couple of tenths quicker than Russell on that lap. So the gap comes back down to 2.1 seconds. It's a DRS train behind, but with the whole starting basically from, well, Sainz, Ricciardo, then the AlphaTauris, but it's a really close DRS train, isn't it?
Norris has just gone wide. Albon might have a chance up into turn 4, but somehow he's not had any drive. Norris missed the apex big time at turn 1 and is under big pressure from the Red Bull man behind, and Perez is just behind Albon as well, who we ride on board with through turn 5, the right-hander is 6, which just leads into this chicane at 7 and 8. Norris is starting to really struggle, but Albon not able to make a way through at the moment. Norris doesn't have DRS, and he's one of the few that doesn't. Perez is right on the back of Albon as well here.
Here they come, down towards the final corner, and Perez is the man, I think, most likely to make a move here, potentially, because he was right with Albon. Albon's been complaining that he's just slow on the straights. They come across the line to start lap 19 of 87. DRS for Albon, DRS for Perez, both closing in on Norris for 9th position, and no one fancies it just yet. Perez was super deep. Oh, he's gone wide again, Norris, at turn 1. Perez, you can hear, getting on the power. And this could be the chance for Albon. Yeah, up into turn 4. Norris covers the inside. Albon goes to the outside. Perez just sort of sits back into 4. Not a huge amount of sort of commitment either way for Albon, but he's just setting up Norris because he's going to be really close to the back of him when they come down the start-finish straight next time. And I think Norris could lose a couple of places on the run down to turn 1.
Those soft tyres not looking good after that brilliant start to go from 19th up into 9th. Now he's on the back foot, but Albon can't afford to make a mistake here. He's got to make this clean because Perez is crawling all over the back of him, especially coming into the final corner, which they exit now. They'll both get DRS, and Norris has just broken slightly clearer on the exit of turn 10. Here goes Albon now. Can he get a run into turn 1?
Perez looked much stronger on the brakes than Albon last time through the first corner. Albon has a little nose to the inside again. Norris, is that just Norris's line that he's taking through one to get him better traction or something like that?
It's really weird that he's going so wide at turn 1 and then tightening turn 2, but he does seem to be having an okay drive. Here goes Albon round the outside.
Wheel to wheel between the two of them, and Albon's got the job done. Very, very nice manoeuvre from Alex Albon. He gets up into 9th position. Perez sweeps past Perez. Well, that would be impressive, wouldn't it? Perez sweeps past Norris as well, almost immediately, and Norris drops down to 11th spot. And now Perez will want to get back to the hunt on Alex Albon. He dealt with that pretty well, Sergio Perez.
And this time Albon's not going to have DRS to defend from Perez as well, so that could work perfectly. Norris has just been shuffled down a couple of places, and Perez might immediately have a chance at passing Albon down onto the main straight. Norris pits.
So he's done with those soft tyres. Here they come down towards the first corner again, and I don't think Perez is going to be close enough to Albon as they come into the right-hander. Lando Norris comes into the pit lane, as you say, changes off those soft tyres for a set of the medium tyres, and Perez is still behind Albon, but only by a 10th of a second or so as they come up towards turn 4. Now Perez is on the outside, sweeps around the outside of Albon. Albon tries to hold it in, but he gives Perez room, and Perez does the move to Albon that Albon did to Norris 1 lap ago.
Brilliant racecraft once again from Perez. Had the DRS, and Albon this time didn't have the benefit of having the DRS from Norris ahead, and Perez sweeps through another place up into 9th, and he's already made a pit stop. He's only 9 seconds off the back of Carlos Sainz. Perez could finish on the podium, you know, in this Grand Prix. He's on the medium tyre that's working well. He's already used a set of softs, having pitted at the end of lap 1, and he'll soon catch up to the back of the DRS train that is held up by Sainz in 3rd place.
Wow, looking good for Sergio Perez, Jenny.
Yeah, he's been told by his team that he needs to watch out for the front left tyre for Perez. Now, Jolene, you're not saying that Perez is going to get to the end of this on a one stop. He's going to have to pit again either way you look at it.
Yeah, but so is everyone, and he's right with them all. And he's on a tyre that can go at least further and then have a nice offset later on. He will not be going to the end of the race. But I think he's in a strong position. He's super quick, and he's racing aggressively and assertively well, basically carving his way through from the back of the field up into 9th place, passing all cars on track.
George Russell continuing to lead the Grand Prix, still 2 seconds clear of Valtteri Bottas in 2nd position. It's down to 1.8 seconds as they come across the line this time. Bottas was a 10th of a second quicker than his Mercedes teammate. Those two still slogging it out up at the front. Then it's Carlos Sainz in 3rd, Ricciardo in 4th, and he is just out of DRS range, is Daniel Ricciardo, from Carlos Sainz. The same is true of Kvyat in 5th in the AlphaTauri to Ricciardo, but Lance Stroll isn't able to make any progress in the racing point. That's kind of the driver that you would have thought would be making a bit of moves at this time, because he's kind of the only guy in there who's got the DRS. Okay, the AlphaTauri behind him of Gasly does too, but Stroll's the man you'd have thought might be making moves.
All the drivers from 3rd down to 7th, Pierre Gasly in 7th up to Sainz in 3rd, are on the soft tyre that they qualified on yesterday. So they should, in theory, be having the similar degradation problems to Lando Norris, who's already made a pit stop. Whereas Ocon in 8th is the first of the medium runners, aside from the Mercedes that are in a battle all on their own. So Ocon and then Perez and Albon may come into this a little bit later on anyway.
So George Russell is asking whether the team can tell him whether Bottas is using the curbs or not. He reckons he could go a couple of tenths quicker if he's allowed to monster the curbs. So I imagine we're in a similar situation to, was it Austria earlier this year, where both Mercedes drivers were told, you know, stay off the curbs, and they basically weren't. So yeah, we'll see what comes back there. And Russell is saying, looking in his mirrors, that Valtteri is using more curb.
Bottas within 2 seconds, so Russell may have a chance to look on some of the corner exits to see, but as Bottas has done fastest lap of the race right now. He's looking quick, and we're getting towards a critical phase where if Bottas has got anything left in the tank in those tyres, he needs to be closing up, getting as close as he can to Russell. The problem he's got is he's going to have to overtake him on track, I think, because Russell should have the priority in pit stops, being the lead Mercedes driver.
Nick says, using the hashtag BBCF1, so much racing. It's nice, isn't it?
It's great. Really, really nice overtaking as well, and through the section that I thought it wouldn't be possible. Turns 5 up until turn 8. Just quick sequence of corners, but it's all coming from the attacks into turn 4 where there's DRS, which is helping the cars get side by side and then play it through. Oh, an attack early ahead.
Or is that a moving out of the way? Is that a lapped car? I think it might.
It's Raikkonen being lapped, yeah.
Lap 25 of 87. Jenny?
Yeah, listening to the race briefings coming into this, it was clear that the undercut was going to be quite powerful. We saw it last weekend as well, so just wondered if Jenny wants to explain what an undercut is before we go into the main pit window.
Well, the driver that pits first or gets new tyres.
We're faster, but we're just not raceable.
Albon saying we're faster, basically, than Sergio Perez, but we've got no straight line speed, so we can't actually race him or deal with him. Continue.
The problem is he's lost a place in the first place, really. Albon was ahead, and if he's faster, he shouldn't have let Perez through. Now he is actually about a second back still. He's actually matching Perez's pace since the Mexican passed him, but struggling to make any overtakes on a racing point that has always been quite fast in the straights. The undercut, the first driver that pits will go onto new tyres and have more grip for however many laps they stay out. The driver that then comes in afterwards has just done a lap on an old tyre compared to the guy that pits on the new tyre. Therefore, their in-lap is basically quicker than slower than the other driver's out-lap, and you get the potential for a change of positions for the first driver to pit. If you pit too early, you're going to be in trouble at the end of the race, though.
Jack Aitken is still only 5 seconds back from his teammate Nicholas Latifi. Pietro Fittipaldi is 10 seconds back from Kevin Magnussen at the moment, both on the same strategies as each other. Lap 27 of 87, so 30 laps completed on these medium tyres for both Russell and for Bottas. As Russell comes through the right-hander of 4, all looks very neat, tidy, steady, down through 6, into the chicane at 7 and 8. Lifting a little early, and then, yeah, he's barely touching the curbs, is he?
Super safe for Russell. Mercedes won't want their drivers touching the curves because they're only in a race against each other. There's no Verstappen. They don't need to absolutely maximise the width of the track at the risk of, around this bumpy circuit, damaging a drive shaft or suspension or anything else. So Mercedes will be just trying to play it safe, as they did in that season opener in Austria when Verstappen was also out of the Grand Prix early. They've got no threat. It's just a head-to-head between Russell and Bottas, and Russell has just done the fastest lap of the race.
It's really ebbing and flowing, this gap. At the line that time, it was 2.4 seconds between Russell and Bottas. The previous tour, it was 1.7 seconds at one point around the lap. So it's, 2 tenths here, 2 tenths there. Fascinating battle between the two of them. Daniel Kvyat pits. So he was running he was the first of the AlphaTauris out there running. I think he was in 5th position, was he not? Yeah. Ahead of Lance Stroll. So that could force the rest of those sort of front midfield runners to box.
Yeah, they'll probably all dive in. Definitely Ricciardo and Sainz will pit and try and keep position, because this is an attempt at the undercut then for Daniel Kvyat. He's on a medium tyre, but a new tyre, and he's got no cars ahead of him. So a nice clear track to just attack on this outlap. It's only a short lap, so hard to do too much, because it's only 55 seconds and the guy ahead can pit. And now Sainz is told to box this lap, coming into the final corner, and he should peel off into the right-hand side to the pit lane, which he does in the McLaren. Ricciardo doesn't.
Gasly does in the other AlphaTauri. So Ricciardo stays out there, moves up into 3rd position. Sainz pits, as does Pierre Gasly, and he should come out still in front of the AlphaTauri of Daniel Kvyat. New medium tyres go on the McLaren, and he screeches away. Alex Albon, therefore, gaining a couple of places. Where are they going to emerge? Renault are ready for... well, they were standing in the pit lane waiting, presumably for Ricciardo, but that hasn't been the situation. He didn't come into pit. Kvyat then comes out still behind Sainz, but Renault doing something a little different.
Renault staying out. They were ready. Maybe Ricciardo was told to pit or stay out if Sainz pits and have a bit of clear space. Remember, he's been bottled up behind Sainz in that battle for third all race so far.
And target plus 20. Both cars being instructed stay off the curb at turn 8. Both cars have one infraction.
Ricciardo pits now then. Target plus 20 now is what?
Well, that's clearly a one-stop now. If there was any doubt, then it's going to be a one-stop for the Mercedes and maybe a switch to the soft tyre at the end. Ricciardo now pits. Will staying out the extra lap give him a chance to attack Sainz with a good pit stop? Or is he going to be under pressure from Kvyat that now pitted 2 laps earlier?
So Sainz is coming out of the final corner now. Sainz is going to be ahead. I think Kvyat might get this as well. Down towards turn 1, and the Renault of Ricciardo is going to be wheel to wheel with Kvyat, and Kvyat comes out in front. So nice work from the AlphaTauri team. That's put him up into a net 4th position. The Renault of Ricciardo drops down to 5th. This is one of Kvyat's strongest races in a long, long time. Okay, he was cool and racy in Imola at the safety car restart, but overall, as a Grand Prix in a regular fashion, he's doing a really good job here.
Yeah, I don't know why Ricciardo didn't pit the next lap. We were just speaking about the undercut, and it was obvious what Kvyat was doing. He was the car behind Ricciardo.
The team were there ready for the pit stop because we're just seeing Sainz come in, and Renault were all there set to go.
Yeah, but he didn't come in. So he's ended up, by staying out the extra lap, he's been driving on the used tyres, and he's lost a place to Kvyat, who put 2 quick laps in on a new medium, and Ricciardo's lost a place there.
Russell still leading the Grand Prix, 2.8 seconds ahead of Valtteri Bottas in 2nd position. 3rd is Lance Stroll now in the Racing Point. He's out on the soft tyre, and he's going his own way here, doing his own thing, basically. Lando Norris is about to pass Jack Aitken for 12th position, but they're not actually fighting over position because Aitken is yet to pit. But Stroll then doing something a little different with the Racing Point team to get him out of this undercut, overcut battle with the rest of the midfield.
Well, there's an interesting dynamic now. Sebastian Vettel's up into 7th place, hasn't pitted, and is on a medium tyre. And those drivers that were in the battle for 3rd have pitted and come out behind Vettel. Now, overtaking's not looked so easy, but Sainz is going to have to clear Vettel very, very quickly. Otherwise, he could come under pressure from the likes of Stroll, who hasn't pitted. I think he is going to make this look very easy, though, Sainz. He's got way more grip into the final corner.
Sebastian Vettel out through the final turn and drives to the pit lane. So into the pits goes Sebastian Vettel. That's handy for Sainz because he gets the DRS as well, goes through a bit of a dirty part of the racetrack in order to rejoin the racing line. But Vettel pits. So Russell leads, Bottas in 2nd. Gap up to 3 seconds now. So it was 2, it was down to sort of 1.8 at one point. Now it's up to 3 seconds, George Russell ahead of Valtteri Bottas. Stroll is in 3rd, he's yet to pit. Then Ocon in 4th has yet to pit. Perez in 5th has yet to pit. Albon in 6th has yet to pit. That means in a net 3rd place at the moment is Sainz ahead of Kvyat, Ricciardo, Gasly and Norris, and Vettel's coming out just behind Nicholas Latifi, who also has yet to pit, and just in front of the Alfa Romeo of Antonio Giovinazzi. So those two are going to race by the looks of things up towards turn 4. The Williams covers the inside, Vettel goes to the outside, and on newer hard tyres goes around the outside of the Williams. But Russell's building up his lead here.
It was a slow pit stop for Vettel, 4.5 seconds for the Ferrari crew, and that's what just dropped him behind Latifi. But at the first time of asking, he's around the outside of the Canadian at turn 4. He is doing everything right. George Russell, 3 seconds now, and looking comfortable, keeping consistent on pace. Bottas is still there or thereabouts, but he has just dropped another second back in the last sort of handful of laps. We're coming towards what should be the pit stop window, and Russell looks like he's covered off his Mercedes teammate at the moment.
Just looking at Sebastian Vettel coming out on those hards, I wonder if they're going to try and see if the one stop will work or if the pace goes away too quickly with those hard tyres. But it is an option for them now on lap 34.
Yeah, it's true. Everybody else has changed to the mediums, basically up in the midfield group. Giovinazzi put on the hards, as have Aitken and Raikkonen. Ricciardo right on the back now of Daniel Kvyat, just half a second, well, 7/10 of a second behind as he comes out onto the start-finish straight. This is going to be a good chance for Ricciardo. Last of the late breakers usually. Can he do it on Daniel Kvyat for currently 8th place down into turn 1? Looks to the inside. Kvyat covers late in the day, but Ricciardo wasn't actually almost close enough to need the cover, although you can never bet against Ricciardo doing it. He'll now get the run up towards turn 4. Kvyat again moves to the inside. Ricciardo gets the DRS. Nothing he can do at the moment. This is a net battle over 4th position, Kvyat and Ricciardo.
Yeah, Kvyat running a great race at the moment and holding Ricciardo off. I don't think Ricciardo was going to send a move at turn 1, but he just forced Kvyat to defend at the last minute, and that left the Russian under pressure at turn 4. But the Renault straight line speed wasn't good enough to properly attack. Kvyat just needs to close the gap ever so slightly to Sainz ahead, and he'll have DRS to defend from Ricciardo, and they'll be back in a DRS train. But as it stands, he's just a second and a half away from the Spaniard ahead. He's getting the help of a slipstream, but Ricciardo's getting the DRS and a slipstream, and that's allowing Ricciardo and the Renault to attack once again down towards turn 1.
Why? Yeah, the Honda power trains in the AlphaTauri seem to sort of compete fairly well with the midfield, don't they? It's just in the Red Bulls that they seem to struggle so much.
Well, the Red Bull, the Verstappen radio messages about the Honda losing out is normally in reference to the Mercedes out front rather than the rest of the midfielders. We've had Albon complain already about lack of power in this race. Again, that's compared to a Mercedes power unit of Sergio Perez. Honda against the Renault, and Kvyat looks relatively okay at this stage.
Jenny?
Yeah, just listening across the team radios, Alex Albon in the Red Bull being told that he's already got 2 strikes when it comes to track limits at turn 8. Can't afford to make another mistake there and go wide. The stewards are looking at turn 8 very carefully today.
Yeah, too many transgressions on the exit of turn 8 and you'll end up with a time penalty. Russell's lead 2.6 seconds now, so Bottas has closed in a little bit. Ricciardo again super late on the brakes to the outside of Kvyat. This is allowing Sainz to sprint away just a little bit. Ricciardo coming up through turn 4 now, and he's not close enough to make a move again on the back of the AlphaTauri. Russell doing the opposite of a Lewis Hamilton impression, saying, Bono, my tyres are fine.
We've heard that from Lewis as well at various moments. When he doesn't want to pit, he wants to stay out there. And Russell, 2.5 seconds to gap to Bottas. So Bottas has nudged half a second back out of it, but still looking comfortable enough for George Russell, and happy with the tyres as well. So he's in a very good position.
Lap 37 of 87. So we are not at half race distance yet, not too far away from it, as Ricciardo comes across the line again, right in the slipstream of Daniel Kvyat. Kvyat isn't losing out to Sainz though in all of this. He's still 1.5 seconds behind Sainz, so it's not as though the Spaniard in the McLaren is able to get away in that fight for a net 3rd position. Perez is still ahead of them, but at the moment he's just 10 seconds ahead of Sainz. So I think it's going to be a toughie for Perez to join the fight, but it depends what strategy they're doing, because I would suggest he and Stroll are both looking at a one-stopper.
Yeah, and Ocon as well. Stroll in 3rd on the soft tyre still is doing a very good stint, coming towards half distance on the soft tyre, running in 3rd, and that has got to be with a view of doing a one-stop. Ocon in 4th, a second and a half back, and then Perez in 5th, another second and a half back, are all looking at a one-stop.
Okay, Esteban, let's try and put pressure on Stroll, please. Let's put pressure on Stroll if you can.
So, Ocon being told, let's put pressure on Stroll. 1.6 seconds between them at the moment. Ocon on his 38-lap-old mediums. Stroll on his 38-lap-old softs. Well, probably 41 after their qualifying runs, of course. Ricciardo still sitting in behind Daniel Kvyat, his former teammate at Red Bull. Russell and Bottas across the line, gap back up to 2.8 seconds.
Once again, they're neck and neck, really, the two Mercedes. Bottas is not able to put any sort of pressure on Russell, and every time he just starts to close the gap, Russell's able to extend it back out closer towards the 3-second mark. But they're really just trading blows at this stage. It's going to be the pit stop window, which is crucial, and Russell's got to get the pit stop right. You know, it looks so easy to get the pit stop right because drivers is done so routinely, but Russell's never had the pressure situation he's in now.
5 more laps.
5 more laps is the message to Bottas. Russell as we said at the top of the show, asked Pete Bonington to remind him when he comes into the pits that he's in the first garage, not the last garage.
And if he's got to stop perfectly on his marks from 80 kph, stop dead without losing as little time as possible. But if he misses his marks, then you can lose 3 seconds in the pit stop quite comfortably. Pietro Fittipaldi had a 5-second pit stop. We didn't see exactly why, but it could just be a lot of caution or missing the marks potentially for a rookie driver. Russell's not a rookie, but the pressure of leading a Grand Prix and having a Grand Prix win at stake is something he wouldn't have never dreamed of in his Formula One career so far.
How much do you get to practice that? Because you presumably practice the pit lane entry every time you come in. Do you practice hitting the marks super fast every time, or you're usually coming back into the garage, or
every single time you hit the marks like it's a race?
Okay, but you don't do it that often, right?
Well, every single time you come in through for your outlap in FP1, or you do it a lot. You do it a lot. All your in-laps in FP1, 2, 3, qualifying is all stop on the marks, bam. It's practice. But it's not a race condition when you're leading and you've got your teammate still within striking distance behind.
That 41 of 87, Russell across the line, 2.7 seconds ahead of Valtteri Bottas in second position. Stroll is in third. That message to Ocon to put pressure on Stroll hasn't really ended with anything. They're still the same distance apart at the moment. Perez in fifth, Albon in sixth, Sainz, Kvyat, Ricciardo, Gasly, the rest of the top 10, but a reminder that third through sixth have yet to make a pit stop, so Sainz is in a net third position at the moment, but we're going to see different strategies play out over the course of this Grand Prix. Now Perez is pretty swiftly onto the back of Esteban Ocon. He's about a second and a half back from him now, so he's making progress, Sergio Perez, Jenny.
Yeah, he certainly is, and Perez just speaking to the team and having a conversation about the tyres. Perez not happy with them, saying they're starting to go away, but they're saying, no, they look all right to us, just keep on going. We know you're not happy, but you can do this.
That 42 of 87 for the race leader. Russell 3 seconds ahead of Bottas.
Perez has been stuck behind Ocon for a while now, so his great progress early on has come to a halt behind Esteban Ocon, who's on the same strategy as him. Ocon is stuck behind Perez's teammate Lance Stroll, and they're all bunched up there behind Stroll, who's still on a soft tyre on lap 41. It's gone a remarkably long way, the soft, which was degrading horribly last time. Ocon pits then in the Renault from the medium tyre.
Okay, so that's interesting. Do Racing Point keep Perez out there longer, or do they... Well, Ocon was ahead anyway, wasn't he?
It's Stroll that might have to cover.
With Stroll?
Yeah, Stroll surely will try and pit on the next lap and try and cover off Esteban Ocon, but it's a good pit stop from the Renault guys. 2.4 seconds. Is he going to come out in clear space? Lando Norris down the main straight. This will be tight.
He's going to come out just in front of Norris, I think, as Ocon gets onto the brakes into turn one. The hard tyre for the Renault team, so that suggests he's going to the end, and Stroll will now come into the pit lane on the next lap. Russell's still leading though by 2.6 seconds, Jenny.
Yeah, he's been on the radio though saying he's got degradation on his fronts, and just looking at his front left, it does look a little bit ugly. He's also saying the rears are starting to overheat as well.
And George, we're just going to keep extending whilst we have traffic in our pit window.
Yeah, that's fine, mate. Just control it.
So Russell being told they're just going to basically keep going while we have traffic in the window, in their pit window, so they don't want to come out in the middle of chaos and not be able to use what would effectively be the undercut on his teammate Valtteri Bottas. Stroll pulls away then, having come into the pits and put on a set of the medium tyres, and he is going to be just side by side with Ocon as they get onto the brakes into turn one. Stroll turns in. This could be Ocon's opportunity really to try and get past as they swing up now through turn four, and this is the chance for the Renault driver. Stroll covers the inside, Ocon to the outside has the DRS, and the Renault, is it going to be ahead? Stroll hangs it in, late on the brakes, the two go wheel to wheel, still wheel to wheel through the right hand kink of 5, but it is Ocon that comes out on top for the time being, but the Mercedes engine in the back of that Racing Point might have something to say about it on the run down to 1, although Ocon's been very quick through 7 and 8.
Cracking move from Ocon, full commitment. He knew that was his chance. That was the undercut of 1 lap on the hard tyre as well. Impressive stuff, and a full commitment move through turns 4 and holding it in on the apex of 5. Ocon's having a great drive here. He's going to the end on a hard tyre. but Racing Point choosing a medium tyre for Lance Stroll. So Stroll should be quicker, but potentially have a harder job to get that tyre to the end. But given the way he's gone half distance on the soft, I think he should be okay.
We're seeing some really good racing into turn 4. Russell still leading. Bottas second. And George Russell is still leading a Grand Prix for the first time. He's still ahead of his Mercedes teammate Valtteri Bottas by 3 seconds, and he's looking good to take the victory here. They still got to make their pit stop, the Mercedes drivers, and we got full commentary on Sports Extra. That 45 of 87. Here comes Ricciardo again on the back of Kvyat down towards turn 1. Again, a little bit too far back. Are we seeing... Russell is going to pit then at the end of this lap. The Mercedes team go running out onto the pit lane, and Russell slams it down the gears, down to the 80 kilometers an hour speed limit, pulls over to the right-hand side and slots it neatly into his grid slot. Away go the cars again, and it's a 2.4 second stop for Russell. Looked neat and tidy, if maybe a little conservative on the way in.
Yeah, conservative, but he's in the benefit of Mercedes being the first garage, so he had a really nice open shot into the pit bay. It did mean that he was on the apron for a long time, which is slippery, so quite rightly George was very cautious when he hit the brakes, but stopped pretty well on his marks. 2.4 seconds. That's a big part of this race done now for Russell. Bottas presumably will pit soon, and that'll be them both to the end of the race.
Lap 46 of 87. Russell then out, and Ricciardo right on the back of Kvyat. Coming up through turn 4 now, but he's just, turn 3, but he's now dropped away a little.
No power.
No power, says Russell. Sets the fastest middle sector of anyone.
That's the sector with all the corners. A lot of corners from turn 4 to turn 8, and now he comes into the final corner and accelerates, and let's hear it. Car sounds okay.
He's getting up to 190 miles an hour, up to 200 miles an hour.
HPP default 35, HPP default 35.
So he's been asked to change something on the steering wheel then, and he's about to do a personal best in the first sector, so it doesn't sound too dramatic for Russell, but it won't feel like that at the time, I don't think.
I hope he's done all his homework on the switch settings of the Mercedes. HPP, though, is the power unit, and that will be the same power unit as he's had in the Williams car, but it's just depending on where the switch settings are. Maybe he's managed to fine-tune it to what he had already at Williams and do that adjust very quickly, but he's up to pace well. He's done the fastest first sector and second sector on this lap. He knows this is a crucial time with the pit stop phase, and he's driving very nicely. He's looking like he's going to set the fastest lap here.
Across the line, Russell does set the fastest lap of the Grand Prix. Bottas didn't pit then, so maybe they are just extending a little longer with Bottas, and he will hope. Here's his radio.
We are 4 seconds unsafe, George.
So Bottas being told we're 4 seconds unsafe from George, so they might as well leave him out a little longer to try and have fresher tyres at the end of the Grand Prix. They could even try and go all the way and put them on softs for the end.
Well, this just seems unfair, though, between the two Mercedes. Russell was ticking along really nicely and had no need to pit.
Yeah.
3 seconds ahead of Bottas. Why pit him if you're not about to pit Bottas as well?
Because this is what Mercedes always do, right? Or this is the opposite of what they always do, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. How many times have we heard Bottas or Hamilton, when he's behind, ask for a different strategy and not be given it? Right now, Bottas is looking like he might be given it. He's got a couple of laps longer. He's about to come up to a lot of traffic, though. Perez has just pitted from 3rd place, and Albon as well pitted. They've dropped down to 9th and 11th. They'll also be going to the end, and Bottas is about to catch a lot of those back markers.
So Sainz is now in 3rd position then. Daniel Kvyat in 4th, Daniel Ricciardo in 5th. Gasly is in 6th spot, 7th is Ocon, 8th is Stroll, 9th is Perez, 10th is Ocon. But we think that the Sainz and the Kvyats of this world are going to have to stop again, and that is where Perez and Ocon will be brought back into contention up towards the front of the order. Out now go the team. So it is going to be the same strategy for Valtteri Bottas. Into the pits he comes.
Just a couple of laps later then, so he'll have a marginally fresher tyre, but it will also be a hard tyre, crucially. The same strategy, medium to a hard. Let's see what his pit stop's like then for Mercedes.
Looks pretty neat and tidy. Away he pulls, and it is 2.4 seconds for Valtteri Bottas. Russell comes past him now already on the start-finish straight down towards turn 1, and he resumes the lead of the Grand Prix then, and it's going to be a big margin to Bottas with that undercut. They left him out a couple of laps too long, really, Valtteri Bottas, surely, because he's now 8 seconds back from Russell in the lead of the Grand Prix.
Yeah, Russell's pumped in the fastest lap of the race, which is more than a second and a half quicker than what Bottas has been doing. So that's why suddenly the gap has gone from 3 seconds a long way more than that. It must be about 7 seconds now that the Finn is behind his teammate. Looked like he was maybe going to get a different strategy the way they kept him out.
And we're getting track rod overloads. Apex turn 7, exit turn 8. So just be careful with that front left.
Track rod overloads.
Stay off the curbs, basically through the chicane of 7 and 8, the left and to the right, and Mercedes then being very cautious not to upset the track rods on the car by just crashing over the curbs too much.
And Jenny, whatever troubles Russell was having appear to have died down.
In the flick of a switch, isn't it amazing? He had a sensor issue. It's been resolved by that switch change, so he obviously had done his homework and knew how to get to default 35. Worth saying, Alexander Albon has just been shown the black and white flag for exceeding track limits at turn 8. He's not having a good time for Red Bull. I fear for his seat at the minute.
Yeah, well, it's going to be an interesting one. There's no doubt about that in the off-season. So Russell leading. The gap is 8.5 seconds now to Valtteri Bottas in the lead of the Grand Prix. Sainz is in 3rd position. He's 11 seconds back from those two Mercedes, or rather the second Mercedes. And then you've got Ocon on the back of Gasly. Here's Bottas's radio.
And we have overload front left track road, turn 7, turn 8.
So Bottas being told the same information, basically.
Yep, fair dues for Mercedes, keeping it fair across the two cars. They're both going to be careful then, or should be careful, in that chicane. This is a great position for George Russell. 8.5 seconds. He won't have to make another pit stop again. And there's 35 laps to go. They're both, the hard tyres should easily make it to the end. The degradation element is reduced now. He's in a brilliant position.
Lance Stroll on the back of Esteban Ocon in their fight over 6th position. Gasly pits then. So the AlphaTauri is the first driver to pit for his second stop. I believe he was the first driver to pit for his first stop, wasn't he? And there's Alex Albon up the inside of Lando Norris. So that's 9th place now for Albon, getting ahead of Norris. Gasly leaving the pit lane, but will that force the other midfield runners into moving? Stroll is only 0.6 away from the back of Esteban Ocon. Where are they on circuit? They're coming through the middle sector now and down onto the back straight. So Stroll's going to have an opportunity on Ocon this time around if he can keep that close again. But neat and tidy move from Albon, but only for 10th place.
Yep, he's the man that was not happy about being held up behind Perez is now about 7 seconds away from Perez. They pitted on the same lap, but he's just dropped away at the end of that first stint, and he's passed Norris for 10th, but Norris started right at the back. And to be honest, hasn't had great race pace. Dropped back on the soft tyre early on, and he's not looking great on the mediums either. But that pit stop then for Gasly releases Esteban Ocon and Lance Stroll, and then Sergio Perez, and they're going to be catching the Ricciardo Kvyat battle very quickly. Ocon's only 4 seconds behind his teammate, and we think he's going to be on a pit stop less. He's on the hard tyre that's going to go to the end.
54 of 87. Fascinating Grand Prix. Well, it has been for the whole duration, but the ending is going to get very interesting indeed. Russell 8 seconds clear of Valtteri Bottas. Bottas went 0.3 of a second quicker on the last lap, but Russell's got a decent cushion. Here comes Ricciardo through the final turn now, and he is not that far ahead of Sergio Perez as they come across the line. Ricciardo and Kvyat pits then. The AlphaTauri of Kvyat pits, but Ricciardo to Perez is now just 6 seconds from Ricciardo to Perez.
Stroll right on the back of Ocon. This is an important move because these guys are one-stopping. And this is for what will then be net third place, assuming Ricciardo and Sainz also have to take a second pit stop, which you'd have thought they will do. Yellow flag, sectors 2 and 3.
Latifi is dropping down the order on the timing screen, so maybe the Williams has run into some trouble, and it has. The Williams has pulled over. Now that's going to be a virtual safety car. Is anyone going to be able to take advantage of that in this pit stop window? Who could that benefit?
Sainz and Ricciardo, the two AlphaTauris, have just pitted. When there's a virtual safety car, which there must be to retrieve Latifi's car, Ricciardo and Sainz will have a reduced pit stop time, and Ricciardo should jump in that Daniel Kvyat, you'd have thought.
Sainz has just gone through over the start-finish straight, so has Ricciardo then. So they have just passed the start line, so if a virtual safety car came out, they wouldn't be able to take advantage of it, and that's exactly what's happened. So it hasn't worked out for them at all. We're getting a replay of Pierre Gasly sending one in on the inside of Sebastian Vettel down into turn 1. They're fighting over 11th spot at the moment. Norris pits. This could work out something for him.
It's such a short lap though, Jack, that in a minute's time they'll be back to the pit lane, and unless Latifi's car is cleared in miraculous time, Sainz and Ricciardo can still benefit.
That's very true. Out of the pit lane now then goes Lando Norris, and into the pits comes Sebastian Vettel. Virtual safety car deployed. Russell continues on out there, so does Bottas, and Sainz now is coming through the final sector. Nightmare pit stop for Sebastian Vettel, and comes out just in front of Antonio Giovinazzi. That was a bit of a tight one there between those two, but now Sainz is coming out of the final corner. Virtual safety car is ending. They're not quite going to get it in time. The track goes green just as Sainz pits.
And Ricciardo, I think, is going to pit as well, just behind. The Renault team were getting out in the pit lane, but it's not going to be any benefit to them. But also, Kvyat's been on the new tyres, but he's not going to have the undercut because he's not been able to use that tyre really.
So into the pits comes Sainz, a set of mediums for a set of mediums, and Stroll is looking to the inside of Ocon. Thought he was going to be a bit more decisive there, but he was not. So Ocon now is in third position, not going to stop again. The same is true of Stroll in fourth and Perez in fifth. And now it's a case of Sainz and Ricciardo have got to fight back through the order to try and get ahead, and Lance Stroll is sailing on at turn 4, and that's going to allow his teammate Sergio Perez through. So Perez now is on the attack for Esteban Ocon. We're in for a grandstand last 30 laps here.
Big move that for Perez, past his teammate. There was no team orders there, but he frightened Stroll off the road at turn 4, showed a nose to the inside, and he's in fourth, gunning for third against Ocon on the hard tyre. This is Perez to get back into the podium places on that one-stop strategy.
And he's going to be really, really close coming down the start-finish straight now. They come out of the final turn, and there is just 0.4 of a second between them. Down towards the first corner. Is this going to be Perez's opportunity to get ahead? They come onto the brakes into turn 1, and he hasn't done it. Ocon covers the inside for the time being. Might get the run up into turn 4 though. He's going to. This is going to be a slam dunk for Sergio Perez. Goes to the outside on the run to 4, but he gets the DRS, and the Mexican, after spinning around with Verstappen and Leclerc on lap 1, has managed to climb back up into third place.
Second time in 2 weeks, Sergio Perez is looking like he's on for a podium. This time he's done it the hard way, from the back of the field, having got himself into third on the first lap. I have to say, this has been an awesome drive from him. When he's trying to seal his F1 future, he just keeps delivering, but he's got 29 more laps to keep going. Ocon behind shouldn't be much of a threat on that hard tyre, at least in the short term, unless Perez is going to struggle for tyre life at the end, and he might have to watch out for Perez's teammate Lance Stroll in fifth. This is looking like a good race at the moment for Racing Point in that battle with McLaren in the constructors, because Norris is out of the points and not really featuring too much in this Grand Prix. The question now is, what can those on a two-stop do? Sainz pitted, Ricciardo pitted. He got ahead of Daniel Kvyat once again, so that early pit stop this time didn't work for Kvyat. Ricciardo's back through, having been stuck behind him for all of that second stint. Those guys have got to really now get the hammer down and chase the likes of Perez, Ocon, Stroll and Albon, who's in sixth position as well. But I tell you what, they've got an awful lot of making up to do. 16 seconds between Sainz in seventh and Perez in third and a provisional podium.
Enough going on for you, Jenny.
It's one of those ones, isn't it? There's a lot going on. George Russell's also been on the radio. He's been asking Pete Boddington, his race engineer for this weekend, does the power look good to you? He's really doubting that power unit, but they've come back to him saying, yes, the power unit looks good to us. Gap at the moment Oh, the graphics just disappeared from my screen. 5.6?
Yes, correct.
Great.
Well, it is now 5.6. It was, of course, 8.5, but Russell would have gained a lot of time with the undercut that then Bottas would have then subsequently recovered with his first couple of laps out of the pits. Now down to 5.2 on the last lap, but also when I think he lost a bit of time on the virtual safety car.
Checo, at the moment your pace is seriously strong.
Perez being told his pace is seriously strong. Bottas sets the fastest lap of the Grand Prix, 0.3 quicker than Russell, 5.2 seconds further back.
So the chase is on then. Bottas with 3 laps fresher tyres, 4 laps fresher tyres even than George Russell. Mercedes left him out that little bit longer, which will give him just a slight advantage on the run-in, but the hard tyres should be very safe to get to the end of the race for that Mercedes team. So I don't think Russell should experience degradation too high, but Bottas is charging, and now the gap just comes slightly under 5 seconds, 27 laps to go. I mean, Bottas is under huge pressure here. If Russell wins this Grand Prix, it's going to look awful on him to beat him fair and square on his debut with the team.
I think we need to push. I cannot hang around here.
Yeah, let's go.
So Sainz saying, I think we need to push. So the team presumably have been saying, you know, look after your tyres or something similar. And he's like, yeah, but wait, I'm in 7th place. I need to start picking up the pace, don't I?
This strategy doesn't look right now like it's working too well for Sainz and the 2 stoppers. They've got an awful lot of time to catch up with the Perez, basically, which is where Sainz was in a net 3rd place after the first lap chaos. He's now in 7th. No one else ahead of him should pit before the end of the Grand Prix, and he's got a lot of time to make up to Perez. He's no quicker than Perez at the moment. The gap remains at 16 seconds. He needs to push, and he needs to make a lot of overtakes without losing much time.
Yellow flag in sector 3, although the track is now clear, and then it's yellow flags again. I think Aitken might have had a bit of a moment. Oh, he has. He's lost his front wing. That'll be another virtual safety car then. Maybe even a full safety car with the wing on the circuit. That would help. A safety car would hugely help the 2 stoppers, right?
Massively. Massively. It's a virtual safety car called.
Okay.
That doesn't help the 2 stoppers. A full safety car bunch up the pack, and the 2 stoppers will be on fresher tyres to try and do the overtaking. It would negate that 16-second gap.
So into the pits comes Aitken then. The front wing is sort of on the exit, so it's almost as... I don't know what he would have hit for that to have come off, other than maybe another driver, I don't know. He heads back out onto the circuit then, Jack Aitken, who was having a solid enough run. Latifi, his teammate, out of the Grand Prix, but I'm trying to work out what Aitken's done here. We're about to find out. He's gone wide over the curbs. Oh, he's Alboned it. And just brushed the exit of the barrier, knocked that front wing off onto the racing line.
He's a lucky boy to be still in this Grand Prix, running wide out of the final corner, keeping his foot in, overcorrecting, and just nudging the front wing against the end of the barrier and getting away without hitting the front right on it significantly. Albon was just behind and saw it unfold, and he knows the cost of that one, having had a much bigger crash last week. Full safety car.
This is the sound of it. Aitken's also done it right by the pit lane entry, so he's barely lost any time. Right, full safety car. Into the pits comes Russell from the race lead. Overshoots a little, but in he comes, and Mercedes are double stacking here. So Russell goes away into the lead of the race still. Bottas is going to get fresh medium tyres as well then. So this is going to be a real head-to-head duel for the final 20 laps or so. It's a slow stop for Bottas. That shouldn't cause too much trouble, although there's a man waving on the front left that they can't get the wheel on at all here. Disastrous pit stop for Mercedes. How often do we see that? Barely ever. Oh, there's flames coming from the brakes. They've had to put one of the hard tyres back on the front left. They're now telling Bottas to go. The light goes green, so Bottas is back on his original tyres here.
I think he must be. They took the hards off and then put them back on.
And he's losing position. Perez is now 2nd. Ocon is now 3rd. Stroll is now 4th. Bottas is going to come out in 5th place on an old set of hard tyres.
That has just not worked out at all. Perez didn't pit then, nor did Ocon or Stroll. So none of the runners are pitting, apart from Albon, who pits. He was the last of the 1 stoppers. So that releases Sainz 1 car up into 6th place, with Valtteri Bottas just ahead. It's not working out very well for him right now, Bottas. And, well, he's got to stay on that hard tyre now. Another pit stop, and he's going to be right to the back.
So what? Well, I think that it looks like they're going to try and do it again, aren't they? Here's Russell's radio.
Okay, George, we're going to need to box. We have a mixed tyre set on the car.
Oh, so they've put the wrong tyres on Russell's car here. So Russell is going to have to pit again. This is an absolute disaster from the Mercedes team. Russell pulls into the pit lane. Is he going to come out still in front of Bottas? Is Bottas going to retake that position? Is Perez going to be in the lead of the Grand Prix? I think he is.
And what will be the penalty for running a mixed set of tyres in a Grand Prix? That's the bigger question. There's going to be a penalty coming for Russell as well, I'm pretty sure of it. He's lost the lead. Oh, Mercedes have had an absolute clanger.
And Bottas is ahead of him now. Valtteri Bottas is ahead of George Russell. They're down in 4th and 5th positions. Bottas is on an old set of hard tyres. Absolute shambles from Mercedes. A shambles.
Oh,
Perez leads the race, Ocon second, Stroll third, Bottas fourth, Russell in fifth, potentially with a penalty. Just when you think 2020 can't get more bizarre, Mercedes mess up.
Wow, what a shocker. They're under no pressure in this Grand Prix. They're absolutely under no pressure. They didn't need to pit the cars, but it was a safety measure. They were only defending from Perez on a used medium. You know, they could have got to the end of the Grand Prix easy without even pitting.
I think there's I think with Bottas, I think there's it looks as though there's almost confusion as to which tyre is which, because one rolled out towards the fast lane, and maybe that one didn't get taken back to the correct tyre that it was meant to go on, or something like that.
There was an absolute meeting with the mechanics there.
It was like Eddie Irvine back in, what was it, Nürburgring 99.
They're all having a chit-chat about what tyre should eventually go on. They stick Bottas onto the original tyre, which is now an old hard tyre, and he's going to have to get racy for Mercedes to even win the Grand Prix here. He's down in 4th place behind Stroll on a medium, Ocon on a hard, and Perez as well, now leading the Grand Prix. Russell's behind, but Russell's almost certainly done from this race. It's a shocker for Mercedes to make that mistake under no pressure out front. They've thrown away this Grand Prix with George Russell.
I don't understand how it's gone wrong for Russell, because he was the first car in and it was all straightforward. The chaos appeared to occur for Bottas's stop.
So they must have picked the wrong tyre out. Did they think that Bottas was coming in first? Where's the confusion come from?
Jenny?
Well, I think what they've done is they've put Bottas's tyres onto Russell's car when he came in. That's what I think they've done. They've just switched it. Whether they were expecting Bottas in first, I don't know, but that's what they've done, I think.
So we should have good pace with the new tyre set, So all not lost.
Well, but is all not lost, because will there be a penalty for that for George Russell? He is on the new medium tyres, or newer, as opposed to Bottas, who went back on those hard tyres, right, that he was going to get to the end of the Grand Prix on. So Russell will have a tyre advantage over over Bottas. Sergio Perez leads the Grand Prix. Racing Point are currently running 1st and 3rd in this race. Ocon is in 2nd place in the Renault. But then you've got Sainz and Ricciardo in 6th and 7th, who are on fresher tyres.
They're on new mediums.
And they've got to be having a fight against Perez and Ocon and Stroll on the old hards and mediums.
This is going to be, we've got 21 laps to go. We're still under safety car. Lap cars are overtaking, so hopefully we'll be released soon. Perez leads on a hard tyre ahead of Ocon on a hard tyre. They shouldn't struggle with degradation to the end of the race, but they might just struggle with pace. They've got Stroll in 3rd on a medium. Then it's the two Mercedes, but Bottas is on a used hard now, which won't be nearly as quick as Russell on a new medium. So Russell should be quicker than Bottas, but there may well be a penalty coming for George Russell anyway, which he's not yet been told about. So he's going to get racy and try and beat his teammate that he's led since the start. And then it's Sainz, Ricciardo, Kvyat and Gasly, and now Alex Albon in 10th, all on new tyres. Albon's gone to a soft, Gasly and Kvyat and Ricciardo are all on a hard, and Sainz is on a new medium. How jumbled up do you want it with 20 laps to go?
More than this? I don't know. Right, so my understanding of the sporting regulations...
Be a big tyre advantage.
I hope so.
Russell being told this should be a big tyre advantage. He says, I bloody well hope so.
Very British. Right, he had 3 laps to sort out the problem. So, Article 24.4b of the sporting reg says he has 3 laps to sort it out. He came in within the 3 laps, so fingers crossed for Russell. They're out of the woods.
Yeah, good news then for George Russell then. Maybe not getting a penalty because he came in immediately. Mercedes recognised what they'd done at least. And
who's winning this race then, Palmer?
Can Russell win it still on a medium tyre?
Well, if he's not, Perez is, right?
Can Bottas win it on the hard? What about Sainz on the medium just behind?
We got in fun moments like this, we have to bring in the BBC's chief F1 rider, Andrew Benson. Who's winning this race, Andrew?
I would go for Russell right now. We've not seen him race at the front, that's the caveat, but he's got the fresh, softest tyres. Bottas, is obviously going to have some strong pace against the 3 cars in front of him, but he's got an old set of, well, not that old, but a relatively more used set of hard tyres, whereas Russell's got a brand new set of mediums. So, in theory, Russell has the advantage, but then, he's got to overtake 4 cars to win it. I mean, if he does win it, it'll be an absolutely sensational story, wouldn't it? But, the last 20 laps of the race is going to be fantastic.
So, safety car still deployed then, as they wait for the rest of the field to catch up. They've picked up the front wing from the exit of turn 10, technically turn 11, and Perez is leading the Grand Prix. Never won a race. Ocon in second, never won a race. Stroll in third, never won a race. Bottas in fourth, has won a race. Russell in fifth, never won a race. Sainz in sixth, never won a race. This season, honestly, the safety car's coming at the end of this lap. This season is the season that Formula One, got away with it. You know what I mean? On paper, terrible. But we've had so many mad races, so many fascinating incidents, so much to keep us on the edge of our seat. Sergio Perez leading the Grand Prix might be out of motorsport, out of Formula One at the end of this season. And he's now going to do a safety car restart, I would suggest for the first time in Formula One.
Leading, yeah, I would have thought so. I think Perez can win this. I think he's got to make hay while the sun shines.
Could be close to Perez at the end for the win.
So Bottas is being told it'll be close to Perez at the end for the win. 20 laps to go, 20 laps in Sakhir, and Lance Stroll almost blasts into the back of Ocon. He doesn't, he manages to avoid, but that's going to put him in a very tricky position here, Stroll. Bottas is right behind him. The racing gets back underway. Perez leads, Ocon second, Stroll third, Bottas fourth, Russell in fifth. How aggressive are the Mercedes going to be? Coming down into the first corner. Does Esteban Ocon fancy his chances of winning the race? Russell noses to the inside on the run down to the turn 1, and Bottas covers. Bottas feels the need to cover into the first corner. Russell's going to get a better run out through turn 4. The 2 Mercedes battling over 4th position at the moment, and then nose to tail coming up towards the right-hander. Russell looks to the inside, thinks about it. Surely he can't be wiping out his Mercedes teammate though.
Wow, but he's going to so want this race win, and maybe it's going to be Bottas standing in his way. Bottas will defend as hard as possible. He cannot let Russell beat him, but he too needs to make overtakes ahead of Stroll, Ocon and Perez, who still lead the race. No change on the safety car restart, and Bottas is looking in his mirrors more than he's looking at the racing point ahead of him.
And Russell is playing the game. He is weaving around left to right in the wing mirrors of Valtteri Bottas, and he's really close to the back of Bottas again, down towards turn 1. This is Russell's opportunity. He's getting closer and closer to the back of his Mercedes teammate, charging down into the first corner. Another nose towards the inside. Not close enough to do anything about it just yet. DRS still not available for these drivers. Perez leads 1.4 seconds ahead of Esteban Ocon in the Renault. The other racing point of Lance Stroll is third. And I thought Stroll was in the back of Ocon there at the restart.
We're super close. He obviously thought Perez was going. Bottas makes a mistake at 4. This is a chance for Russell.
Can he get him coming through turn 6? He looks to the outside. Does he fancy it to the inside of 7 and 8? George Russell up the inside of Bottas and gets ahead. The Mercedes driver on the fresher tyres, on the softer tyres admittedly, is up into 4th place and now is going to charge down, not only for his first Formula One podium if he can get ahead of Stroll in front of him, but also subsequently his first Formula One win. But he's got 3 cars between he and that.
And Bottas is still right on the back of him. Might fancy a run to turn 1, but I don't think he's got a good enough exit from the final corner. Big move that from Russell. It came from a Bottas error at turn 4. Went in too deep, compromised his exit and his line into 5, and Russell committed to the outside of 6 and inside of 7. They were so close. But that's a huge move for Russell. He did have a big tyre advantage, but it was a mistake from Bottas rather than any big tyre advantage that paid off in the end.
Well, Toto Wolff said the gloves are off. They certainly are. Russell sent it up the inside into 7, and Perez then leads the Grand Prix. Ocon in 2nd, Stroll in 3rd, Russell in 4th position. 5th is Valtteri Bottas, 6th is Carlos Sainz, Ricciardo, Kvyat and Albon, the rest of the top 10. Perez sprinting away up at the front. His lead is 2.3 seconds over Esteban Ocon. Russell looking racy already. I cannot imagine how fired up the man from the east of England is.
Yeah, DRS on Stroll. This could be another move. Stroll's not close enough for DRS on Ocon, and Russell's got the run into turn 1 here.
Stroll covers the inside line, but not fully committed, and that allows Russell to nose up the inside, run the car out wide and move up into 3rd position. 3.7 seconds to Esteban Ocon in the Renault in front. Meanwhile, what's going on with Sainz and Ricciardo? Well, Sainz is up behind Bottas, but he's less than a second behind Bottas, but hasn't been able to make a move yet.
Bottas is slow. Bottas is just slow on the used hard tyre, and he's actually not able to go at all with Russell charging through the field. He's actually holding Sainz and Ricciardo up at the moment.
Yeah. Sainz and Ricciardo need to get ahead of Bottas if they want their 2-stop strategy, which was helped by the bringing out of the safety car, but if they want it to work.
Russell's flying onto the back of Ocon. Perez is a 3-second lead. He is absolutely going for it right now. 0.6 clear of Ocon on the last lap, but now Russell's going to have a chance to overtake.
And here they come down towards the first corner. Russell noses to the inside, doesn't send it this time around. Stroll is now defending from Valtteri Bottas, and that's going to be a tough nut to crack, I think, for Bottas. As I say that, he's getting a very good run out through turn 3, and he'll have the DRS up towards 4. So does Russell, who goes to the inside of Ocon into 4, and Russell's into 2nd place.
Ocon really not fighting that. He's looking for a podium. Russell into 2nd, 3.5 seconds off Perez with a much faster car. He can do it here.
It's lap 73 of 87. Thank you very much for joining us here on 5 Live Sports Extra for the Sakhir Grand Prix. And all the Williams mechanics are sitting in their garage cheering on George Russell. One of their cars is out, the other one's running at the back, but they are going to lose their mind if Russell wins the Grand Prix. But he's got, across the line now, 3.4 seconds to close in on Perez. On that last lap, he was 3/10 of a second quicker than Perez. It's doable, but it's not going to be straightforward.
No, but that was passing Esteban Ocon, and he didn't do it at turn 1 either. He had to do it at turn 4. So he should have the pace, but Perez is driving a fine race since this safety car restart. He's now 4.5 seconds up on Ocon in 3rd, 6 seconds up on Stroll, who remains ahead of Bottas on the hard tyre. Bottas still not on the podium, and he's actually in 5th place, still with Carlos Sainz right behind him. This is all helping Perez out front. They're looking at a podium unless Perez can somehow hold off George Russell.
What is this Merc doing? Come on!
Carlos Sainz getting frustrated then behind Valtteri Bottas in 5th and 6th position. Now Russell across the line, and that time around he's only 0.2 quicker than Perez. He's only 0.2 quicker than Perez, and he's 3.2 seconds back.
12 laps to go.
Oh.
It's gonna be tight. Russell's got to find more. He did the fastest lap of the race the previous lap when he passed Esteban Ocon. Then he's not done a lot on this lap. Can he regroup and close down this 3-second lead that Perez has got? Then he's got to pass Perez as well, who is faster than Ocon and faster than Stroll, the 2 drivers that Russell's just picked off. Perez also picked them off quite nicely as well. This will be the hardest nut to crack for Russell, and it's for the race win.
We're getting a new race winner in Formula 1 this evening, aren't we? Surely.
Don't say that just yet.
Lap 75 of 87. Down the start-finish straight they come. Russell is going to set another fastest lap of the Grand Prix. Perez has a 56.8, so he's being pretty metronomic, Sergio Perez. That's more like it from Russell. 0.4 of a second quicker. Ocon does a personal best as well, and they're all queued up behind Lance Stroll because Bottas is unable to get past Stroll.
How many times have we seen Bottas lose places at the start and never really make progress? It's Monza all over again. Obviously, he's not lost places at the start. He's lost places in the pit stop here. He's on a hard tyre, but the tyre life is similar to Stroll ahead. Stroll pitted late to go for a medium tyre, but Bottas pitted a similar time on a hard. Bottas is in a Mercedes, and Stroll, who has had a couple of big lockups in this race, is on the medium.
And you're the fastest man on track. That was 4/10 on Perez, so keep it up.
So that's the message to George Russell in second position, 2.4 seconds adrift of Sergio Perez in the lead of the Grand Prix. Ocon is in third place, Stroll is in fourth, fifth is Valtteri Bottas, sixth is Carlos Sainz, seventh is Daniel Ricciardo, eighth is Alex Albon, ninth is Daniel Kvyat, and 10th is Pierre Gasly. What is Lewis Hamilton making of this? Watching in his hotel room.
Russell is starring here. He's absolutely starring. Another 4/10 out of Perez, but I'll tell you what, it's going to be tight. It's going to be tight. The laps are ticking down and the gap is 2.3 seconds still. And Perez is going to so want this Grand Prix win. He's been racing in Formula 1 for nearly a decade. He's had many brilliant podium results, but never a win. He should have had a podium last week, but his car gave up just a few laps from the line. He's not going to let Russell have this easy, but Russell is going to be so motivated.
Oh, there goes the look from Sainz on Bottas. Brilliant move from the Spaniard. The McLaren gets ahead of the Mercedes. Similar move to the one that George Russell pulled. And Bottas is going to lose out to Ricciardo as well. The second Mercedes driver sliding back down the field. And to whom it may concern, Bottas is having a very difficult evening. Alex Albon might be going past him now in a moment. 10 laps to go. Has Bottas got a problem? They're going side by side down the start-finish straight. He was leading the Grand Prix. A safety car came out. The Mercedes team came into the pits and they gave him the wrong tyres. So he had to come into the pits again the next time around. He emerged in fourth position. Sergio Perez is the Racing Point driver that's leading the Grand Prix. Russell fought his way past his Mercedes teammate Valtteri Bottas. He's up into second place. He's 2.3 seconds behind with 10 laps to go over on 5 Live Sports Extra.
I think he's just been told that there's looks like a rear left puncture.
He looked really slidey out of 10. He looked really slidey, Bottas, coming out of 10. I felt like... And Russell pits.
Yeah, Russell with the rear left puncture.
Russell's.
It was Russell with the rear left puncture. In he comes, the race really comes to nothing in the end. Oh, no.
This is unbelievable. George Russell in the pit lane with a puncture, and he's back out on a set of soft tyres, but he's not even going to score any points, Russell. He might not even pick up points for the first time in Formula 1. An unbelievable Grand Prix. He's going to come out behind Pietro Fittipaldi down towards the first corner. He is in 15th position, George Russell, and this race has tumbled away from Mercedes in the most spectacular manner possible since 2016 Catalonia.
I don't know what to say.
No, sharing your feelings there, mate. Let's just get your head down.
Perez leads the race. Perez is going to win the race. Ocon in second, Stroll in third, Sainz in fourth, Ricciardo in fifth, Albon is sixth, Kvyat seventh, Bottas is down to 8th place. What on earth is going on with Bottas, even on older hard tyres? This shouldn't be the pace, right?
No, this is poor from Bottas, really poor. He made a mistake to let Russell through. I think he might have made a mistake to let Sainz through as well at the same place, because Sainz should never have a run through turn 6 into 7. It's just not really possible to overtake there unless he'd already had a run at turn 4 or Bottas had made a mistake. He's 8th place, and that's the only Mercedes driver in the points right now. What a shocker. And the hard tyres are old, but they're only the same life as really Perez's hard tyres or Ocon's hard tyres, and Perez is clearing out at the front of the field. This is a really poor drive now. There's no recovery at all for Bottas.
Right, lap 80 of 87. Perez is leading the Grand Prix, 8.4 seconds ahead of Esteban Ocon in second place. Perez surely is going to have this one comfortably under control. He's miles ahead of Esteban Ocon. Stroll in third and Sainz in fourth. That's going to be the fight now. Across the line they come, and Sainz was 0.3 of a second quicker. So it's Sainz and Ricciardo who are trying to get up to the one stopping Perez, Ocon and Stroll.
Ocon doing a cracking job.
The best thing for the tyres is to keep leaning on them and keep the temperature. So keep leaning on them, keep the temperature.
Perez and Racing Point, having not won a Grand Prix in his life, Sergio Perez. Racing Point, having never won one themselves. They won a couple as Jordan. I think the most recent would have been 2003 Brazilian Grand Prix with Giancarlo Fisichella. And Perez across the line now is bossing this one and jumping back up into 4th place. But a week ago, don't want to say it, he was looking very strong, Sergio Perez, and then it all fell apart. With the engine breaking down on the closing laps. The incident involving Russell will be investigated after the race for incorrect tyres. So I guess that's the stewards thinking, oh, thank goodness me, we don't have to make a difficult decision, because they wouldn't want to be doing that while the race is unfolding. Although, according to the regulations, as far as we see it, there's no trouble for Russell there, but there is a lot of trouble for him now, down in 13th position. Perez leading, 9 seconds clear of Ocon, Stroll in 3rd, Sainz 4th, Ricciardo 5th, Albon, Kvyat, Bottas, Gasly, Norris, the top 10.
Perez never won a race, but Ocon's never had a podium in Formula 1 either. He's in 2nd and looking comfortable now, still with Stroll quite close behind, 1.3 seconds. But that one stopper for Ocon looking good. It's just whether Sainz can pass Stroll for 3rd.
These tyres are terrible.
If I get it to the end, P8, every point counts.
Well, and that is true for Bottas, because he's in a fight for 2nd place in the Drivers' Championship with Max Verstappen. Obviously, Verstappen not scoring any points, so this will help Bottas. But Perez was backwards at turn 4 on the opening lap.
He was whacked. It was huge contact. Ruled Leclerc straight out of the Grand Prix. Verstappen was out of the Grand Prix. Perez took such a big hit, but then pitted. But his early laps after the pit stop were just magic, carving his way through the field with really strong pace as well. He basically caught the back of that midfield pack really nicely, and then taking out a pit stop that he did at the end of lap 1, he got himself into a good position, still past Stroll on track, past Ocon on track. This has been an incredible drive from Perez. He's driving for his future, and Red Bull cannot not see this drive.
yeah, I think that's very, very true. Lap 84 of 87. 4 laps to go now in the Sakhir Grand Prix. Sergio Perez looking set to win his first Formula 1 race. He's come close in the past. In particular, you think back to as Russell is now making a pass on Vettel and moving up into 11th place. He wants to at least score that first championship point when he's driving this Mercedes, does George Russell. Here's Bottas's radio.
George on the soft carving through the field. Might get close on the last lap.
Can you imagine? Imagine, he's in 11th. He's 5 seconds behind Bottas, who is now on the back of Kvyat again, and Albon and Ricciardo and Sainz. But he lost places to all of them. He lost 4 positions, and that's why he's down in 8th. Now he's running with them in terms of pace, but Russell is carving his way through the field in 11th, but he's got a few cars to pass still, Norris and Gasly, before he can have a look at his teammate once again.
3 to go. Sergio Perez, the Mexican, leading the way for the Racing Point team. 2012 Malaysia stands out as one where he was so close to taking the victory when fighting with Fernando Alonso. Looked as though he was going to pass Alonso for the lead. Meanwhile, sending it up the inside is Norris going past Pierre Gasly and up into 9th spot. So Perez leading, Ocon 2nd, Stroll in 3rd. Could be a double podium for Racing Point. Russell's in 11th spot now, right on the back of Gasly. He should be able to bag a couple of points here, Russell, which will be something at least, and that monkey will be off his back.
I think that'll be the least of his worries, really, bagging a couple of points after this Grand Prix. No doubt he has been a star of this weekend. Maybe he'll get another chance next weekend, but even so, Mercedes will be so aware of what he can do in the car. And I tell you what, he's been impressive from the word go this weekend. The race has got away from him through no fault of his own. He managed everything out there.
Penultimate lap of the race for Sergio Perez. Jenny.
You could cut the atmosphere in that Racing Point garage with a knife. They are so tense about this. Imagine if you said at the beginning of the year a double podium, you'd be crazy.
Here comes Russell on the back of Gasly. Him and Norris have been fighting it out. Russell's going to go to the inside up towards 4, is he? Yes, he is. Gets the inside line, and that is 10th place now for Russell. He's got to dispatch Norris in front of him. I think Bottas is a little bit too far ahead to really end up in a fight there, but Perez starts the final lap of the Grand Prix. Remarkable
10 seconds ahead. 10 seconds ahead. He's driven so well, Perez, as well. Russell's a star, but Perez has been a star today, and he's on the final lap. The order still remains unchanged, but they're still gaggling. Maybe Sainz has a chance at Stroll here.
Down towards turn 1, DRS open for Carlos Sainz, but he has a look to the inside of Stroll, isn't able to make it through on that occasion. Bottas is still up behind Daniel Kvyat and not making any progress. Russell gets Norris, does he, for 9th? Yes, he does. Up the inside into the first corner. Russell into 9th position. I think that Lance Stroll is just going to hold on to that 3rd place. Sainz has put him under a lot of pressure for the 3rd position in the closing stages. But Sergio Perez in the other racing point, he's getting kicked out of the team at the end of this year. He's getting replaced by Sebastian Vettel, but the Racing Point and Sergio Perez comes out of the final corner, and for the first time, Sergio Perez wins a Formula One Grand Prix, 10.5 seconds clear of Esteban Ocon, who gets on the podium for the first time, and then it is 3rd across the line for Lance Stroll. A Racing Point, 1st and 3rd. It's going to be 8th across the line for Valtteri Bottas, 9th and fastest lap for George Russell. And the emotions for Russell and Mercedes after that Grand Prix is going to be quite something to behold. Not as much maybe as the emotions for Racing Point. You can hear the cheers of Mar Safnauer, the boss of the team, pumping his fists, punching the air, because Sergio Perez, after all this time, takes a Grand Prix victory.
And what a drive to do it.
Yeah.
What a drive to do it. After that heartbreak he had last week of missing out on a podium, don't forget, he finished 2nd in Turkey. He should have had 3rd last time. Now he wins. He's driving so well. Of course, Mercedes absolutely botched this one, though.
Yes, Checo, P1. Yes. Lance P3, Checo, Lance P3.
I'm speechless, guys. Good job, guys. Luis, asegúrate que Checo está viendo la carrera, por favor.
In his 190th Grand Prix start, Sergio Perez victorious. The fireworks are rattling off around Sakhir after a very entertaining Grand Prix. Sergio Perez has taken his first ever Formula One Grand Prix win. The driver started with the Sauber team back in 2011. This is his 190th race, but he has won the Grand Prix. It looked as though Russell was going to push him close for it, but Russell had a puncture in the closing stages. Big problems for Mercedes. Bottas finished 8th, Russell finished 9th. It's Sergio Perez who wins the race. Ocon 2nd, Stroll 3rd in another remarkable Grand Prix this season. We'll have full reaction later on the Checker Flag podcast. Perez returns to the pit lane. This could be his penultimate race in Formula One.
I don't think it will be after that. I don't think it will be. What a drive. He's put in so many brilliant drives across his career, but this one was the perfect race. He got wiped out by Leclerc. Leclerc was out of control on lap 1, smoked it in on the inside, all locked up, tagged Perez with quite a big hit to the right rear of the Mexican. He was dead last at the end of lap 1, took a pit stop, then had phenomenal pace, carved his way past pretty much every car in the field, bar the 2 Mercedes who took care of themselves, and wins the Grand Prix in one of the most spectacular drives.
Checo is the chant for Sergio Perez, who's being bounced up and down by his mechanics and by his engineers. Esteban Ocon is getting out of second place as well, but no one sort of really cares about him, bless him, because it's all the focus is going to be on Perez and on Russell after this one. Ocon made the one-stop strategy work for the Renault team, and it's been a difficult year, to be fair, for Ocon, but that is going to be the boost he needs when he's up against Fernando Alonso next year.
Absolutely, he'll take a huge confidence from that. He drove really nicely, Ocon. The one-stopper clearly was the way to go. Perez effectively on a one-stop after that lap 1 pit stop. Ocon and then Stroll all one-stopping. They were out of position from lap 1. Sainz will be gutted. How's he thrown this away from being third? The Mercedes take themselves out. He should be there. And for the second time this season, he should be the man to take advantage of Mercedes' errors. But he's not. He's been jumped by good strategy from Renault team with Ocon and the Racing Point team with both drivers.
Ocon goes and jumps and hugs his mechanics. Great celebrations for Ocon in second place. A hug for Stroll and for Perez. Jenny?
This is one of the happiest podiums I think I've ever seen. They're just delighted, all of them, and I'm so happy for them. It's taken us till this point in 2020 to have a totally overjoyed, delighted podium where no one felt robbed on that podium. And I can't tell you, Racing Point will just be, I mean, this is all they've wanted. This is amazing for them.
It's going to be a big boost for them as well, isn't it, as they move towards becoming Aston Martin next year. Sergio Perez with his eyes closed, wipes his forehead and his eyes with a towel, takes a swig of water after finally winning a Formula One Grand Prix, and in commanding style as well. 10.5 seconds clear of Ocon. He absolutely bossed that restart after the safety car, because he and Ocon had been kind of right together for most of the race.
It was crucial when he passed his teammate. Stroll could have made life very, very difficult for Perez, but Stroll made a mistake, let Perez through, and then Ocon had no DRS to defend from Perez. I'll tell you what, Perez put absolutely no foot wrong in that race. And in fact, you say he bossed the restart, he bossed the entire thing, really.
Yeah.
It was a splendid drive.
So Sergio Perez waves to the team that are all standing over on the pit wall. He goes and has a big hug with Lawrence Stroll. A little bit of irony in that hug, I would have thought. And now we can hear from a race winner for the first time. Sergio Perez moves up to 4th in the championship with that one. He's won the Sakhir Grand Prix. He's with David Coulthard.
Sergio Perez, welcome to the middle step of the podium. Welcome to your first victory. Take us through your emotions right now. The first Mexican to do so since 1970.
Well, I'm a bit speechless. I hope I'm not dreaming, because I dreamed so many years being in this moment. 10 years it took me. Incredible. I mean, I don't know what to say, after the first lap the race was again gone, same as last weekend, but it was all about not giving up, recovering, going through it, just making the best we possibly could. The season, the luck hasn't been with us this year, but we finally got it, and I think we won today on merit. Yes, the Mercs had some issues, but I think in the end my pace was strong enough to hold George, who did a fantastic race today.
Yeah, there's no question. Mercedes had some issues, but as you say, you did this on merit. That first corner, or that first incident, I should say, in the first lap in turn 4 with Charles Leclerc, explain the emotions right there, because after that, the comeback was spectacular.
Yeah, I mean, I did a big mistake during the safety car. I locked up my front left tire badly. So during my first stint, I had so much vibrations throughout the stint. But as soon as I recovered onto the second stint, I told my team, this car feels just like a limousine, so easy without the vibrations. We had tremendous pace, and I think we read pretty well the race throughout the weekend. We came here thinking it was going to be a 2-stop, but straight after my long run on Friday, we knew what we had to do today.
Now, for people that are tuning into Formula One for the first time, amazingly, you don't have a drive for next year as we speak. How much does this strengthen your resolve that you deserve your place here in Formula One?
It just gives me a bit more peaceful with myself, to be honest, you know. What happens is not so much in my hands at the moment, but I know, and I want to keep going. So if I'm not in the grid next year, I will be back in 22.
Grand Prix winner sounds pretty good, doesn't it?
Amazing. Amazing.
Right, enjoy the podium. Well done, Sergio. So, as Sergio walks away, let's bring his teammate in. Lance, well, your second podium this year, a fantastic result for the Racing Point team. How do you feel, first of all, for your teammate getting the victory, and then talk us through your race?
Yeah, I mean, amazing race for the team. A part of me is a little bit disappointed. I think I could have won the race, so I went a little bit deep on my pit exit after my pit stop, and Esteban managed to get by me, and then I just didn't have the pace. I locked up, Sergio went by, but I just didn't really have the pace to overtake Esteban, so I got held up there a little bit. But all in all, very happy for the team. I mean, it's an unbelievable result, and you know, first and third is exactly what we needed this weekend for the championship.
You mentioned that mistake into turn 4. There was an under rotation. You just went a little bit wide. What was it that was particularly challenging about that corner on that lap that caught you out?
It was just I think being in the fight with Esteban and Sergio. I was late on the DRS actually, out of 3. So Sergio got a good run on me, and then I was defending and I just miscalculated it, braked a little bit late and locked up. But one of those things. But at the end, super happy for Sergio. You know, he's got a couple races left for the team. He's been, you know, up there for such a long time waiting for the win, and it came this weekend, so really happy for him.
Okay, well, enjoy the podium. And finally, we welcome Esteban Ocon and your first podium in Formula One.
So I have no words. I cried on the line. That's how much emotion, you know, that's going through my mind actually now. It's been a tough season, you know, on our side. It hasn't paid off all the time, but you know, we never, you know, stopped pushing. We, you know, kept working hard, kept, you know, staying motivated. That was very important, you know, at the moment where, you know, there's less and less people believing in you. It's important to believe in yourself, and today, you know, we made it happen, and I'm very pleased with it. So it's hard work, but it paid off.
Now, it's interesting you say there about, you know, whether people are believing in you. The momentum seemed to have been with Daniel earlier in the season. He got that podium, of course. So how important is this for you to have shown the Renault team ahead of having a pretty handy teammate joining you next year in Fernando Alonso?
Sure, but I mean, Daniel is a fantastic benchmark. He has done a very solid season, you know, into his second season at Renault. He has stepped up, and overall, you know, I feel like my progression's been strong as well, and I'm, you know, closing the gap to him, and to have that podium, you know, it's the cherry or the fruit on the cake.
Go and enjoy your podium. Well done.
Thank you very much.
Well, races don't come more crazy than that. Welcome to Formula One in 2020. If you thought it was going to be a little bit boring, I think Jack Nicholls and Jolyon Palmer have got to have a lie down in a quiet room somewhere. They will, of course, regroup. We will be doing a Checkered Flag podcast, on my word. We have plenty to talk about. A disastrous day for Mercedes. They threw away what could have been excellent. And I'm afraid it ended in disaster for George Russell, didn't it, when it came to him not getting that win? What will Lewis Hamilton think, and what will happen in the next race? Because Abu Dhabi is just 7 days away, and we'll all find out in a few days' time if Lewis Hamilton will be able to drive or if George Russell will be back in the car. As I said, there will be plenty to talk about in the Checkered Flag, so make sure you join us then. My thanks to all the team for getting us on air as ever. My thanks to Jack Jolyon, and remember, this has been an IMG production for BBC Radio 5 Live.